You sensed that you should be following a different path, a more ambitious one. You felt that you were destined for other things, but you had no idea how to achieve them. And in your misery, you began to hate everything around you. You lost all interest in this world. You were disappointed and discouraged and lost interest in everything, so you abandoned your physical body. You went to a world apart, and you're living a different kind of life there, in a world that's inside you. This is a common story of an individual of the 21st century, and it is a tragedy, at least for those who perceive it as such, for those who know deep down that there is more awaiting for them. But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. Everyone bargains their own truth in their heart, but for most, this truth is cemented in coping and avoidance and distractions. They numb themselves with fleeting pleasures, filling the void with distractions that momentarily silence the gnawing dissatisfaction. But deep down, they know that comfort is a prison, and they are both the captives and the wardens. And after years of repetition, it's what they know best. Even though you stand at a crossroad in your life in every moment with infinite potential paths to take, before you, there is only one visible path. It is the path you have been walking for ages. It is familiar and predictable. If you turn around, you see the trodden, long and winding path that stretches into the distance, paved with disappointment and discouragement. Perhaps it was betrayal that led you here, maybe even malevolence. And perhaps you were a victim entirely of forces beyond your control. And yet, here you are. A dull, endless repetition of what you already know. No struggle, no risk, no unknown. You have settled into it, letting the weight of routine wrap around you like a heavy cloak. You have become comfortable. You have become lazy. And the worst, you might even have become bitter and resentful. Your psyche splits into two. But it has become so clouded that you can't see through it anymore. What is true? What is untrue? Does it even matter? If the world treated you unfairly, shouldn't you simply return the favor? Why not hate the world, not just in words but also in action? In doing so, you know you destroy yourself, and you don't want to do it, but you also want to do it, because even though it's repulsive, it's also so pleasurable. But if you are apathetic or a coward, you don't destroy the world, you just destroy yourself. You are comfortably numb, you forgot that you have dreams that you forgot, and it's just so easy to continue this path, even though you know that there is nothing for you in it. Maybe our last hope is Friedrich Nietzsche and starting to philosophize like him, with a hammer. As Nietzsche makes it clear, the way to avoid being one of the mediocre masses is to do what might be considered the hardest thing in the world to do. Become who you are. Becoming who you are is the same thing as growing as a person, but rather than becoming who we are, Nietzsche feared that most of us would become what he called the last man, a person who has become so comfortable and lazy that progress itself has become a burden. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he wrote, "They still work, for work is entertainment, but they take care the entertainment does not exhaust them. Nobody grows rich or poor anymore. Both are too much of a burden. Who still wants to rule? Who obey? Both are too much of a burden. For the last man, everything and anything that requires effort is a burden, and Nietzsche feared that we would become a population of last men, so in love with comfort, leisure, and entertainment, that progress itself would be felt as a burden. So if you value pleasure and comfort above everything else, you will inevitably lose your highest potential and become a last man. The only question is, can you live with that? We are our own dragons as well as our own heroes, and we have to rescue ourselves from ourselves. And the rescue does not lie within comfort. Now, the conditioned mind will automatically think it has to lie within discomfort, but this is equally untrue. As untrue as the idea that comfort is bad, comfort is comfort, discomfort is discomfort. None of it is good or bad, none of it can rescue yourself from yourself. But what is the answer then? What can rescue you? What is great about man is that he is a bridge, not an end. What can be loved about man is that he is a going over and a going under. You are not a static being. You are a dancer between chaos and order. Without chaos, you are trapped in order, subject to the tyrant. Without order, you are lost in chaos, without meaning, value, or purpose. The mediation between the two is an adventure. This is what we humans are built for, and I think deep down, everyone knows that. If you bet your life on comfort, the destructive kind of it, your life is simply a continuation of distraction and repression. Your character was not strengthened enough in childhood, so you go after the things that give you an immediate reward. The challenges you would genuinely want to undertake require a sacrifice. But as you've never learned to make proper sacrifices, you think the devil you know is better than the one you don't. You haven't been pushed enough into the unknown in your childhood, so you don't know what you are capable of. You stay at home. The advantage of this is that you don't lose your body out there in the world. The disadvantage, however, is that you lose your soul. Man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately in love with suffering, because that's the only thing he had ever known for his entire life. Living in your comfort zone might be the worst and strongest addiction. Hating yourself for it even more. Both create certainty, and it even offers a form of identity. I suffer, therefore I am. This is a wonderful justification for inaction. If one's suffering is perceived as inevitable or deserved, there is no need to change, to take responsibility, or to venture into the unknown. But at such moments, we may not see the whole picture. You should be afraid of taking risks and pursuing something meaningful, but you should be more afraid of staying where you are if it's making you miserable. You're paying a price by sitting there, being miserable. As I said, you might think that the devil you know is better than the one you don't, but don't be so sure of that, because the clock is ticking. If you're miserable now and you change nothing in 5 years, you'll be much more miserable and you'll be a lot older. However, if you go into the other extreme and bet your life solely on discomfort, your life is simply a continuation of the tyranny of parents and teachers who killed the child in you because it was killed in them. Nothing about it is enviable. It is simply a lifetime of coping with trauma that knows only one state, which is survival. Slavishness in its unnatural extreme is equally harming and imprisoning as its comforting counterpart. Nothing makes this clearer than the following story. One day, a fisherman was lying on a beautiful beach with his fishing pole propped up in the sand and his solitary line cast out into the sparkling blue surf. He was enjoying the warmth of the afternoon sun and the prospect of catching a fish. About that time, a businessman came walking down the beach, trying to relieve some of the stress of his workday. He noticed the fisherman sitting on the beach and decided to find out why this fisherman was fishing instead of working harder to make a living for himself and his family. You aren't going to catch many fish that way. You should be working rather than lying on the beach. And what will my reward be? Well, you can get bigger nets and catch more fish. And then what will my reward be? You will make money and you'll be able to buy a boat, which will then result in larger catches of fish. And then what will my reward be? You can buy a bigger boat and hire some people to work for you. And then what will my reward be? Don't you understand? You can build up a fleet of fishing boats, sail all over the world, and let all your employees catch fish for you. And then what will my reward be? Don't you understand that you can become so rich that you will never have to work for your living again? You can spend all the rest of your days sitting on this beach, looking at the sunset. You won't have a care in the world. And what exactly do you think I'm doing right now? We risk sacrificing the thing we want, let's call it happiness, for the thing which is supposed to get it, which is success. But if we make ourselves miserable in the pursuit of success because we believe that success will make us happy, why not just shortcut everything and do something we actually enjoy? Is your happiness aimed at fulfilling you or impressing everyone else? You can wear yourself out fighting the wrong dragons. You can exhaust yourself completely. What is the point in success if the road to get there is paved with nails and then you don't care about the place you arrive at in the end? You can enjoy the sun and the fishing like the fisherman, or you can fish more and build a fleet. None of it is good or bad. Let the youthful soul look back on life with the question, what have you truly loved up to now? What has elevated your soul? What has mastered it and at the same time delighted it? Place these venerated objects before you in a row, and perhaps they will yield for you, through their nature and their sequence, a law, the fundamental law of your true self. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. If the universe isn't returning in your favor, you better believe that the problem is you and not the universe. If the world you are seeing is not the world you want, it's time to examine your values. It might even be time to sacrifice what you love best so that you can become who you might become instead of staying who you are. Become aware of your own insufficiency, your cowardice, malevolence, resentment, and hatred. Consider the murderousness of your own spirit before you dare accuse others and before you attempt to repair the fabric of the world. Maybe it's not the world that's at fault. Maybe it's you. What are you doing to yourself? You will only ruin yourself with your despair. You have no patience, no courage. Now you are saying, in a fit of despondency, that you have no talent. It's not true. You have talent, I assure you you have. You have it. You don't act with the world in accordance with what you expect. You act with the world in accordance with what you want. If you cannot understand why someone did something, look at the consequences and infer the motivation. Would that mean that if you are suffering in despair, deep down you want to suffer in despair? You tell me. We humans are complicated. We exist at different levels, and all the levels don't communicate with one another. Fleeting pleasures are so great because they distract us from this misalignment, and that's not a problem as long as you don't have a problem with it. But if it's not a problem today, maybe it will be tomorrow, because you are a community of selves across time, and the misalignment won't go away if you indulge in more fleeting pleasures. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself if it did in the past. The thing that's so interesting about being alive is that you're all in. No matter what you do, you're all in. This life is going to kill you, so as long as you're stuck around here, you can play the most magnificent game you can while you're waiting. Or do you have anything better to do? What does most magnificent game mean? I have no idea. At the end of the day, I just ask you, but how could you live and have no story to tell?